Hi guys, and welcome to another yapping session. My name is Matea, and this video will be about something that I think is quite misunderstood in our modern culture, and that is philosophy or spirituality that's inspired by nature. In today's society, we have this idea that nature is something outside, something not connected to human life or human civilization, and that makes us misunderstand what nature is. In the past, especially in European antiquity, there were quite a bit of philosophies that related to nature or that drew inspiration from nature, Stoicism being one of those, but there were many other philosophies or spiritual systems that were drawing inspiration from nature. And the biggest reasons why I think our modern culture misunderstands those spiritualities and philosophies is because it antagonizes nature and misunderstands the purpose of drawing inspiration from nature. And the purpose was never to romanticize nature or to think that it will always be pleasant towards humans. It's quite the opposite. Looking at the cruel and unpleasant aspects of nature can teach us a lot about ourselves and the world around us. Also, nature is not as cruel and horrific as modern social media or science media presents it to be. You don't even have to go outside of the regular scientific consensus to understand this. Because this is a fact in biology and science that as much as there are predators and prey, there are symbiotic relationships and communications between different types of organisms. For example, the mycelium network and the trees, or lichen, which are a symbiosis between algae and fungus. And there are a lot of different examples, I just named two, like these little fishes and big whales, the fishes that clean them. A lot of those examples exist in nature, and it's not that uncommon. But I've noticed that people tend to focus only on the cruel and negative aspects because that kind of draws people attention. For example, cobras measuring the entirety of their owner's body so they can eat them, or this giant lizard that tortures their prey before they eat them. There are cruel things in nature, and sometimes they are exacerbated in social media, on TikTok, on Instagram Reels, especially when talking about mammals like dolphins and otters, because those videos tend to present those animals as entirely cruel or horrific, when in reality they do as much shit as humans do. Not every person you know is a psychopathic rapist, neither is every dolphin out there. These are facts that you can literally verify or check with actual zoologists, rather than catchy social media influencers that talk about, oh, the dolphins are psychopaths, they rape everything. Dolphins are horrific and they rape everything that walks. Everything that swims they will rape. Now a couple of dolphins would do that, just like with humans. And yes, a lot of humans are cruel, are horrific, but that doesn't cancel out everyone else that isn't. And same goes for other animal species. And we're not talking about reptiles or insects that do not have the same emotional capacity as mammals. Most of those animals just do cruel things instinctually. And we should not anthropomorphize animals and think that they're doing things for evil reasons when they're just trying to survive. And you probably noticed that in most of my videos I say things that the modern culture thinks this, modern culture thinks that. I don't think everything modern is wrong or bad. And I don't think everything traditional or something that was in the past is necessarily good. I just think that we live in a box. We live in a perception of reality that our culture creates, and that has been true for ever since human existed, ever since cultures existed. So getting outside of that can teach us a lot about what the world is like, actually, what reality is like. And that's especially true for the world's biggest organized religions, as well as modern academia and the dogma that's kind of prevailing inside of it. And the thing that I was talking about now is not something that's not accepted by the mainstream academic consensus. It's very well known amongst biologists and zoologists, but the average consumer of social media or catchy videos does not understand that. And it's not just about social media. I've seen misinformation spread in real life even by older people who don't use social media. And what does that have to do with philosophies and spiritualities that draw inspiration from nature? And it has a lot to do with that, because we cannot understand ancient Eastern and Western wisdom without properly understanding what nature is. And if we separate ourselves from nature and we antagonize it, we create a distorted perception of how things actually work. And that's why I'm using the ancients as an example and ancient philosophies as an example, because I don't necessarily think they were more knowledgeable than us in absolutely everything, but I think they were truly living closer to nature than we are today. Spiritual systems from the East, such as Sanatana Dharma or Taoism especially, draw inspirations from nature, and even Stoicism draws in the West. It draws inspiration from nature. You can find depth and wisdom in many indigenous traditions and very complex philosophies that are misunderstood in the modern age. So what connects all these philosophical systems is this trust in the flow, trust in destiny. Not in a sense that everything is predetermined, but in a sense that we cannot control everything, and we should live in according to our human nature as a part of the ecosystem, not something separated from it. For thousands and thousands of years, humans have been an important part of the ecosystem. And some people misunderstand this by saying that everything that humans do is natural because humans are animals, humans are nature. And that to me makes no sense, because if everything is natural, then nothing is natural, so that completely removes any meaning from the word. In my opinion, and in the opinion of many people that use the word, it's meant to describe anything that honors the ecosystem and doesn't destroy it. But you can also say that the natural processes of the Earth's crust, the volcanic activity, have been detrimental to the ecosystems despite being natural. And to that I would say that's Earth's nature, that's not human nature. Every creature on this planet tries to survive and thrive in their ecosystem, and humans are the only ones trying to destroy it to make themselves comfortable. That's not thriving, and if we destroy our ecosystem, that's neither surviving. That's why I think we need to study nature and its processes and understand it thoroughly, not just intellectually, but deeply, to understand what our position as a species inside of this entire Earth's ecosystem is. And what I noticed that it's hardest for people is to neither romanticize nature or to antagonize it. People tend to go into different extremes, and that's extremely unhealthy and untrue. That way of thinking is almost like splitting people into entirely good and entirely bad, except you're doing that for nature. And that creates distorted perceptions and biases when we're trying to study nature. And not just scientifically, but also individually, when you're trying to learn from nature in order to create your thoughts and opinions about reality as a whole. And it's especially problematic when we look at human civilization as a representation of the entirety of reality, when actually it has been artificially created by a small portion of humans that have all the power in the world. And that has been the situation for the past 2000 years, more. And it's been especially noticeable in the past 200 years, ever since the Industrial Revolution began. Those who had stronger, more visible, more destructive technology have been the ones that had the power. And that doesn't mean that different civilizations on the planet didn't have their own technological advancements and their own branches of progress. It just means that one type of technology has been seen or perceived as more successful due to survival bias or just winners writing history. This is why I think our fear of nature is artificially created. I don't think it's done on purpose, but it's not something that we developed over time by learning about science and biology and animal behavior or plant behavior. This is a made-up cultural dogma that might have its root in the medieval Europe, even though the medieval time was not as horrific as people think it is, but that's a different topic. Though we are biologically programmed to fear dangerous animals and dangerous situations in the natural world, confusing biological dangers and lack of morality, as well as confusing morality with other animals being pleasant to you, is distorting our perception of what it means to be a conscious living thing on this planet Earth. And by that I mean that our society has been centering morality around humans, when we should actually center morality around the ecosystem. We can take inspiration from the Amazonian tribes that live in a near proximity to extremely dangerous animals, but they understand their pathways, they understand how they move and how they hunt, so they rarely get into contact with each other. And that, in my opinion, is respect. And the more we learn about animal behavior, the more we learn about plants and about human psychology, the more respect we'll have for each other and for the environment we live in. So I think that's it. Thank you guys for listening to me yapping. And if you liked this video, leave a like, subscribe if you didn't already, and see you in the next one.